control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I want to talk a little bit about a coaching call I had with an investor, a student out there who listens to the podcast. So I thought it very relevant to share kind of that conversation and what we discussed with you guys today, because I think a lot of people are going through this. They're trying to figure things out for the market. They're not happy with what they're doing, their 9-to-5 job, if they're trying to pivot in some sort of fashion or try to become an investor, but they want to try to do it as easy as fast as possible without having to do the work. And I'm going to compare this kind of call. It's like, especially being a note investor, the conversation was like, hey, have we ever partnered with big firms where, we reached out to a big funding company and I had $5 million or $1 million plus, and they gave us the money. We went and bought the deal right off the bat. We didn't have to go out and raise individual money for it. We just partnered with it. And we've been approached by different firms in the past to say, hey, would you go out and help us find a big chunk of money? And when it comes down to compensation, they only want to give a 1 to 2 or 3% points on it versus a percentage of the portfolio, because we have to go out and find the deals and then make the connections. And then basically going forward, they've got that connection that they're not paying us. Even if you sign an NCND or a fee agreement, those things aren't going to force. We're going to sue somebody. Not going to happen. And my conversation with guys, I was asking you some questions, and you can always tell with specific questions if people hint around the obvious fact. Now, if I ask you a straight question, I expect a straight answer. If I have to ask you 2-3 times, that throws up my red flags. Like, what are you hiding? Okay. And I asked this guy, like, what? Okay. I had, after 2 or 3 questions, trying to finalize what he was trying to do. So you talk about raising capital, talk about real estate investing. I said, well, what are you in? I go, what kind of deals have you done before we're talking about? Have you done any fix and flipping? No, it's like, no, I'm brand new. I'm like, okay, so you're saying as a brand spanking new real estate investor, you want to go find some company to give you $5 million to go find a portfolio of notes. He's like, yeah. I was like, it's not going to happen. Because what do you mean, why can't it happen? I'm a part of the Distress Pro, Brett Palumbo, accredited investor thing, and there's a lot of access to stuff. And I literally looked at him. I said, listen, you guys all know that I love Brett. Brett Palumbo's great software. We've had him on here before on the Note Close Show, on Note Camp, on Note Night in America. I think it's a great piece of software. If you know what the hell you're looking at, okay? If you know how to take what you're learning there and apply it. And I take what this guy was trying to do straight out of the books. He had never even been to a real estate investment club. We talked to him about that. I asked, okay, what kind of deals have you done? He goes, nothing. Have you wholesaled anything? You didn't fix and flip? Have you even bought your own house yet? And he's like, no. So I'm saying literally, so you're literally like trying to step up to the plate, your first at bat in a baseball game, and try to hit a home run the first time you swing a bat. Yeah, well, I'm like, yeah, well, that's what you're doing. Because I asked him, what's your full-time day job? He's like, I'm in the hospitality industry. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Are you a waiter? Are you a manager? Do you valet? What? He's like, no, I'm in the, I'm a limousine service. I'm a valet. I'm like, okay, all right, kudos, work hard, but no offense, if you don't have the experience, if you haven't struck out, there's no way you can hit a home run. So I compare it to him literally stepping up to the plate, picking up a baseball bat for the first time because he's watched baseball, never swung, never struck out, never seen live pitching, and trying to hit a home run the first at bat. And I see this happen a lot of times with investors. They get in, they don't want to do the work, they don't want to market, they don't want to raise private capital from individual investors. They want to just, I'm just going to go big. Well, and that's great, but you're facing a lot of odds, all right? Now, if you look back at history, and I'm going to compare this, because I actually had to do the stats. Literally, there have been like 153 people in all of baseball, 153 people in all of Major League, from the time Major League Baseball started, that got up and hit a home run at their first at bat. Okay? One person did it this year. 2 people did it the last year. It's not done very often when you think about the amount of people coming through. 30 Major League Baseball clubs with 25, people on the team, and then they rotate through rookies and down, stuff like that. That's a very, very small, less than 1/10 or 1/10 of 1/10 of 1%. Basically, you think about the mass of people, and that's not the smart way to do things. The smart thing, I tried to incorporate this into the guys. So listen, I get it. You're taking some great training, you're learning some stuff there, but you still got to do the nuts and bolts. You still got to get your hands dirty. You still got to strike out. And what am I striking out? Well, you've got to start marketing. You got to go do some pitching. If you get a deal, you got to market it to your investors. You got to raise some capital, because no firm is going to give somebody a $5 million line of credit when you've never even raised $5. Okay. Nobody's going to give you a shot at the big show when you've never even played a game. And I love having big dreams. I think big dreams are a great way to have, and you can accomplish a lot of things. But first and foremost, you got to understand the rules of the game, and you got to get and play it. When I played baseball, I was like a linebacker trying to play baseball. Okay. I want to put it that. I was fast. I could steal bases. I played decent outfield, played okay first base, but I wasn't the greatest hitter. Now I've got some hits. I had some RBIs in high school. So I never played I never played Little League baseball. I never played T-ball. I went in my freshman year and I went on and tried out for baseball in my high school. All right. And I made the JV team as a freshman. We had a JV or a varsity. And then I got pulled up to the varsity my senior and lettered, actually, because I was the fastest guy on the team. Imagine 6'1", 200. I was 195 at the time, but basically getting on, and basically I would steal bases and I would run people over, go from third. Nobody was getting in my way. I'd run them over. But I didn't play much in the outfield. I sure as heck only had a couple of bats. But that's the point, is you have to know where you sit in the game. And the note business is the game. The paper game, I say, you got to develop skills along the way. No piece of software, even though Distress Pro is freaking amazing, I think it's a great thing, but I think it can bog you down a lot of information, is you don't know where to begin. And it all comes back to building that foundational base as a real estate investor, because that's what you all are. We are all real estate investors. We're all in the media business more so these days. And I said, well, how many people do you have a database? Because I don't have any database. I said, do you use MailChimp? Do you have these? Do you have this? Do you have even an LLC? No. And one of the things, I've discovered that the best thing for me to do is doing a trust. I'm like, no, it's not. All right. Well, you need to just go get an LLC, get started. You got to start building that experience. I think Grant Cardone has been known to say, or somebody has been saying, you don't become an expert until you spend at least 10,000 hours doing something. Okay. I see this with so many investors that they want to cut corners. Okay. They want to, it's like building a house on no foundation. I'm just going to throw up some walls and a roof and we're going to call it a house. Okay. Doesn't mean anybody wants to buy that house. Doesn't mean anybody wants to live in that house. And if it's windy outside, you may have the big bad wolf batting at your doors. And I just want to and I tried to take some time, like, listen, man, you need to get some education. You need to get some training, because the things you're saying to me, you're shooting yourself in the foot before we get going. And that's one of the things I really tried to get through to the guys. Like, listen, man, no offense. I love your passion. I know what you're trying to do, but you got to start taking some training. You got to get some actual physical, real world training, not just on how to use Distress Pro, but how to market, how to start looking at deals, and get your feet wet. Strike out a few times. Get some blisters on your hands from swinging that bat a few times. Strike out. All right. Get some dirt on that jersey. Sweat a little bit and practice. If you want to make it to the big show, you got to put in a lot of little shows. And if he's listening out there, man, I love you. I think you can do amazing things if you will just be coachable. And it was one of the things that is frustrating. And I talk with a lot of people all across the country. I get a lot of phone calls. You're always more than welcome to schedule a 30-minute call with me. Go to talkwithscottcarson.com, everybody. You go straight in my schedule to schedule some time to talk with me. I'm always glad to ask questions and help you answer things and give everybody 30 minutes to help them on the right path. Because there's enough people out there that want to take advantage of you and want to sell you something that's not relevant anymore. I don't. My biggest thing is I want you to get started. And that's why we have kind of the different phases of what we do with our training. The one-day note weekend for $49 is kind of the Cliff Notes, the nuts and bolts version. Dip your toe in the water. I always recommend people start off there if they don't have any type of experience. And the next step from there is then to take a 3-day course, our virtual note buying workshop. And then if you want to go from there and you've been doing some things along the way, then you may want to take a look at investing in our one-on-one note coaching. But I have people come in, I want to do the note coaching. I'm like, well, what's your experience? Nothing. Well, then no offense, you got to start at square one. You got to do these things along the way. And it's the same thing goes for our coaching students. We've got a great new crop of one-on-one coaching students that are going through the training. And we spent 4 weeks with them literally before we start, like, hey, here, you got to do this. You got to work on this. You got to work on this. You got to work on this. You got to put this in place. All right. Before you get ready to rock and roll. Because there's some people like, oh, I might be interested. And I'm like, no, you're not coachable. I don't want to deal with you. So I'm not going to let you go to the next one. You need to go somewhere else. And that's the most important thing that separates professionals and people that are really good at something or get good at something, is they were coachable in the beginning. And I think back to some of our students that have closed more deals than others, the Wayne Snells, the Jay Tenenbaums, the Robert Woods, just to name a few. I could go on, Riaz Lakhani and stuff like that, who closed on 50 deals their first year. You know, you look at some of those individuals, they were all coachable. They all followed the program. They all started off by buying one or two assets, raising money from their warm market, their friends, their families, or funding the deals themselves and going out and raising capital. And I think about Wayne Snells, he's now basically got a fund. He was scared to death to raise capital on his first round. And I can remember the night that he actually connected with a private investor and got his first basically pledge funds. He wouldn't shut up about it. How do I know? Because it happened during our San Antonio mastermind we had a couple years ago. And we had a group of people come in. There was a networking group. Another mastermind student was going to this networking event. Wayne went along with him in San Antonio, got to talk with people, and guy pledged 25 grand. Now Wayne's raised a couple $1 million from it. You have to realize it starts with those little victories, and the little victories lead to a lot of great things. Strikeouts lead to hits. All right. Hits lead to doubles, triples. Hits lead to home runs. You have to develop your craft. We look at Michael Jordan as the NBA finals have wrapped up and Major League Baseball's in the final phases of the game 3, game 4 is here tonight or something like that. Is Michael Jordan one of the greatest athletes of all time? Was a sub 300 hitter. Never made it to the big show. He made it to Double-A, the Birmingham Barons. He had a couple home runs, but he had to develop his craft. When the opposing pitchers realized that he couldn't hit a curveball or an off-speed pitch, he went into a slump. He could hit the fast stuff. He could hit the straight stuff thrown down the pipe. A lot of people can hit fastballs. It's that curveball, the changeup, the sliders that you have to be a gifted hitter. That's why there's been one person really in the last, over 100 years, when you think back to it, Ted Williams hitting 406. It's a rarity because you strike out more than you actually hit. We make bids on more deals that we end up striking out on every time. That's why you see a closing ratio for most successful investors somewhere around 30 to 40%. Initially, it's a 10% closing ratio. You've got to make 10 offers to hopefully get one in, one accepted, and then still got to raise the capital to do it. And these are the things that you've all heard me talk about. And I just want to reiterate it. In today's world, in the media crazy aspect of video and social media and LinkedIn and stuff like that, and TikTok, whatever it is, you have to develop those assets because it's become more important than anything else. We had a great episode earlier with the CEO and president of Century 21, Mike Needler, and I encourage you to go back and listen to the episode. Great episode with him. And he was talking about how they've had to embrace the fact that you have to get creative. 167,000 agents across the world who have been dealing with things. You have to get creative and pivot and learn how to pivot and move with the market, or otherwise you're out of business. Otherwise you're losing market share, or you're basically a dinosaur and extinct. Don't be a dinosaur straight out of the gate, everybody. There are reasons people are successful, and there are reasons that we have helped so many people do amazing things in their own businesses, because we tell them exactly what it is. You have to do this, this, and this. You can't go from A to Z. You can't cut the line and expect to be admitted to the game. And you have to do the little things, because those little things lead to success in the big things. You have to strike out to get better at what you do. You got to practice. You got to put in those 10,000 hours, those 10,000 trials to get to the point where you're doing it. Otherwise, you could talk a big game and then realize that's all talk and no action. There's I won't say his name, but there's a guy on the West Coast who runs an investment club out there, and he's got a nickname because he talks a game but never delivers on a variety of things. Talks a game about having people come out networking, but then he can't pay his MailChimp account to market people to, can't market to on a regular basis. You have to get those little things. And that's one of the big things I always talk with people. And I know that success comes from the little thing. The little thing, you know what it is? It's sending an email. Yeah, you can look at all the deals all day long, but if you don't have your email accounts down, if you don't have your MailChimp account down, or Aweber or whatever you can use, where you can do that basic necessity of reaching out to the masses, you're going to run out of some money if you're self-funded eventually. And you got to start marketing and realizing, hey, that's the way the world is. 21st century. Scotty's here to beam you up, everybody. And some of you guys are going to be dragged kicking and screaming into the new world. Because I'll tell you this right now, this virtual aspect of life that we have with COVID the last 6 to 9 months, it's here to stay. It's not going away anytime soon. Okay? It's not going away anytime soon. One of the things I think that will do well is the virtual vacations, the whole like Oculus things where you can go take vacations now with that in an hour or two. I think that's going to speed up as people don't want to leave their homes. People don't want to travel because they're scared of things. Look, I think I honestly, I'm not scared to travel. I'm okay if I would go to Mexico tomorrow. I'd go down to a beach and sit in my ass in the Caribbean somewhere if I could. You have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, you have to evolve with the times. And if you want to change your situation, whether you're a waiter or a operator, call center, chauffeur, valet, whatever it might be, wherever you're at, if you're not happy with where your current occupation is and you want to take it to a different level, having a big goal of being able to take that down, hey, have a firm give you $5 million. That's a great goal. It's a phenomenal goal to have. But you got to do a lot of work. You got to do a lot of self-building up along the way. One of the best advice I've ever been given is given by a buddy of mine who has been a mentor, Greg Reed, who's talked about the point that if you want to make 100,000, if you've never made 100,000, you got to get your mind into $100,000 range. If you want to make $1 million, it's a whole different mindset and different activities to go from 6 figures to 7 figures. You got to work on systems. You got to work on delegation. You can't be scared and try to do everything yourself. And that's the thing that I had to work on. Is changing mindset, knowing that I can't be the person to try to do it all in my business. I have to delegate. I have to hire people, assistants, professionals to let them do their job at what they're good at so I can be better at what I do. And that's the biggest thing I can tell you guys. It's great having a big goal. An anti-mentor of mine. Yes, you can have anti-mentors, okay? And it goes back, and you know, you've ever had that professor or that teacher that didn't believe in you, and you hear stories where all these great experts had their teacher tell them, oh, you're not worth anything, you're not going to amount to anything, stuff like that. I had a teacher, and she is passed on, and I hate to say this, but one of the most negative people when it comes to developing minds at the high school level. Now, one of the most brilliant math minds, okay, lady knew her stuff, brilliant. When it comes to math, she taught geometry, she taught calculus, stuff like that. One of the hardest teachers, and the only teacher I ever really butted heads with growing up. Okay. Now I made A's in algebra. I'm the guy that looks at an equation or a thing and I can come up with the answer because I see it in my head. Okay. Well, in geometry, you got to put down those steps. You got to put down the steps in geometry to show that you know it. And I always had a hard time with it because I'm like, I see it. Okay, I'll explain it. And it's the only class that I ever had a failing grade in. Yeah, honors geometry. I made B's and C's the first semester, and the second semester I made an F. Okay, only class I ever failed at. I passed. It was glad to be out of the class at the end of the year. Thank God. Okay. And Mrs. Crawford, who Ingleside, she would tell people in the class, dreams and goals are great, but I don't think your dream should ever be achievable. I don't think you should. A dream is something you can never achieve. And I thought that, and that's what turned me off like the first day. I'm like, what? You want us to tell us that you don't believe dreams are achievable? Now, I get having big dreams and goals and should put them out there, but you work to them. And you think about if that was the case in the mindset, somebody who was so intelligent who was teaching high school in a small school, that's the thing that kind of drives me bonkers, is that everybody that is listening to this or watching this, you all have big goals and dreams that you want to accomplish. The biggest factor in achieving that isn't somebody else, it's you. If you want to have a podcast, or if you want to raise millions of dollars, or you want to close on tons of deals, it all comes down to you taking the actions, you getting up. the day, you making the contacts, you doing the day in, day out activities, and evaluating your day in, day out activities. Are they fruitful? Or am I doing the most productive thing? Or am I losing myself down Facebook? Or am I losing myself down watching hours and hours of the Gary Vee show? I have to give Gary great credit. When I first started off, I loved watching the Gary Vee show when it came out, but I found myself spending an hour a day. I'm like, listen, it's 10 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock before he's done. I just lost an hour of my day. I lost basically an eighth of my day if you think about the work day. Listen to Gary Vee, and after a while, it's the same shit over and over, recycled stuff. He will be the first one to tell you, quit listening to me and start taking action. And that's the thing that I want to get at. If you want to advance what you're wanting to do in life, you have to start putting down the things that are wasting your time, that are not productive. We all have things. We are all guilty of this, in some matter of fact, of having to put things down and be focused on what we need to do. This last year, one of the biggest things that I got into that took my focus away was trying to be a podcasting expert and teacher. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the podcast has been a bad thing, but trying to pivot that route, like, I'm going to rebrand and add podcasting coaching because we've done a great job with that. And I looked a few months ago, I was like, no, I need to stick to my one path. I need to stick to what I know and hone my craft and be focused much more direct on that. Don't get me wrong, it's a big ego boost to have somebody ask you to speak in a podcasting conference or a podcasting summit. But at the end of the day, it didn't lead to results. It didn't lead to things that I need to have happen for me to get where I want to be, my ultimate goal, to do better for myself, my family, and what I want to accomplish. And so that's the thing I want to look at and talk with you guys today is if you say I'm struggling to find time in my day to get what I need done because I work a full-time job, then what are you doing that part-time? Everybody can carve out an hour or 2 hours of their day if they're honest with themselves. It may not be 5 days, maybe 2 days, you have 2 hours. Whether it's a lunch break for half an hour or an hour at night, or if you're commuting, putting something in to help you better yourself, whether you're listening to a podcast while you're driving, commuting, or at the gym or walking, you achieve what you focus on. And if you want to be on the big show, if you want to be hitting home runs and grand slams, you know what you got to do? You got to spend more time in the cage. You got to spend more time fielding grounders, breaking down due diligence tapes, talking to asset managers, evaluating, looking at websites, looking at values, pulling up and learning as much as you possibly can about the game. The paper game, guys, it's unique. It's not like your fix and flips. It's not like your BRRR model. It's not like your short-term rental. The note game, the paper game, is different than what everybody else talks about. And you can't come to be a note investor from a real estate aspect point where I've been a wholesale fix and flipper. It's not the same thing. You have to take those glasses off and put new eyeballs in. It's almost kind of like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, where he had to get rid of his eyeballs and have some Asian guys' eyeballs with looking at world differently. And that was the hard thing for me my first 2 years as I approached the note game from a fix and flip, a foreclosure, a rehab side of things. I lost a lot of money. And if you're coming to this game without any experience, that's actually can be a good thing for you because you haven't built bad habits. But the bad habits you have, if it is like, I'm just going to do the least amount to have the most amount of success, that doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. You can't do the least amount and expect huge results. That's why they say, I give 110%. Because when they're like, well, it's physically impossible to give 110% because then you should have given 100%. It's not, you didn't give 100% the first time. Actually, that extra 110% is the stuff that's done when nobody else is looking. That extra rep, that extra deal, that extra 5% that you give in that shows up at the end of the day. At the success things happen. People always say that, Scott, you're a lucky guy because you just fall into some things. No, I'm not lucky. I'm prepared. And when you're a prepared individual, you show up early, you stay late, good things happen to you. One of my biggest successes early on came from some failure stuff. We were actually, we went to St. Louis for the big St. Louis Real Estate Expo. So we have a big group there. Terry Hall is a guy that has been a radio expert and a realtor in St. Louis for about 40 years. And some big names are supposed to be there. And that weekend, a blizzard rolled into St. Louis, literally. And they expected, and this was Terry Hall's first event trying to do a big thing, and he'd been big on radio. Well, they didn't have a lot of people sign up because it was a different mindset. You can't have, you're trying to do an event like you did 10 years ago. It's different now these days. Well, combined with that, plus the big blizzard, I think only maybe 100 people were showing up. And some of the big speakers there were upset and cussing, and they just left. They didn't stick around for the weekend. And I'm like, we're here. We're going to show up full and just try to give and pivot and try to make the most amount of lemonade out of the lemons we've been given for the weekend. And it was one of our most successful events because I was around. There's not other people there. I mean, there was other people there, but we were able to have what we thought, instead of us having just an hour, we had 5 hours in front of people. We shared, we gave, we adjusted our pricing point, and what we were doing to make the most of that event, to take advantage of what we did have available to you. Look, sometimes we're all serve shit sandwiches, and you all just got to take a bite out of them sometimes. But if you know how to do that and you try to approach things like, yeah, I could have sit there and bitched and moaned, and look, would I've loved to have been in front of 500 people than 100 people? Yeah, of course. But the way I look at it is you get one person to open your email, that's better than none. You get one person to watch your video, or you go to the local meetup groups and you talk to one person more than you've talked to before, you're moving in the right direction. The fact that you show up and play sets you apart from the crowd. The fact that you show up to an event or you attend something, hey, there's enough excuses not to get out of bed, not to show up. And that, honestly, that stops about 80% of people. Look, we could all sit here and bitch and moan about COVID and restrictions and politics. What happens on debates doesn't have 1 ounce of reaction to what I'm doing today. And I see people getting all distraught about Trump and Biden and all these things. And I don't know. Look, there's only one person that is standing between you and success, and that is the person looking back at you in the mirror. Now, if you see a ghost, that's a little scary thing because Halloween's coming up. But I'm saying the person that you are. My success and failures is 100% relied on what I do on a day in, day out action. What I do on a daily basis of getting up, coming to the computer, working, marketing, finding deals, calling banks. It's a day in, day out. Yes, sometimes it's not sexy. Okay. You know, I wore pants the other day for the first time in a long time. I walked down the stairs, steps like, what the heck? You're wearing jeans today? I'm like, yeah, why not? I'm tired of wearing shorts and gym shorts for the most part in front of my computer, but that's okay. What you have to realize is it's still the showing up. It gets easier each day you show up. Yeah, the first couple of days it's difficult. You're figuring things out. You want to throw your computer when something doesn't work. But you learn, you evolve, you grow. You have these breakthroughs that lead to more breakthroughs, which lead to more breakthroughs. And then eventually you look back and you laugh about the little hurdle at the very front end, which was your first big breakthrough that was so huge then. But in the future, you look back, that was something so small. We're going to look back at this thing in 5 years, 10 years and say, wow, how did we evolve? How did we survive? And we did. We just found a way to make it. And you have to do that. For those that are serious about achieving big things, you have to be the person that carries that light, that carries that mantle, that kindles your tribe. And it comes in. You just can't step into a leadership position. You're not born into it. You're not royalty. You have to build that expertise. You have to build it by getting the bruises, the cuts, the blisters, the bloody noses, the bloody knees, the bruises that come from failing forward. And you can't expect to hit a grand slam or a home run when you've never struck out in life. Nobody will believe you. And that's the biggest problem we see today, is that people want to do the least amount to have the most amount of success. And it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. Technology, it doesn't work that way. I've gotten good at podcasting with the podcast because I've put in 630 different episodes. I've done thousands of videos. I'm good at evaluating note deals because I've looked at thousands of deals in spreadsheets and looked at different things and made the phone calls and had the conversations. My success in whatever I've done and my failures has come directly from me and nobody else. The buck has to stop with you, and the buck also has to start with you. All right? You've got to take that time to hone your craft, to get trained, talk to the experts, and listen to what they're telling you. If an expert is taking time out of his or her schedule to spend 30 minutes with you, don't discount what they're telling you. They don't need to be on the phone with you. They got better things to be doing, but they're going to take time out of their valuable day and tell you one or two things, but you want to just cherry pick what you want to accept as fact, then you are the problem. They aren't the problem. The world isn't the problem. You're the problem. And you look at what's going on right now, the World Series being played in Arlington here, and Major League Baseball came together for 60 games. You look at Clayton Kershaw, Texas boy. I'm not a Dodgers fan. Go Giants. All right. You can't root for the Dodgers if you're a Giants fan. It's like being a Cowboys fan and then trying to root for the 49ers. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Or the Eagles, vice versa. But Kershaw had a great first game of the World Series. He finally had a great game. Great career, Hall of Fame pitcher. We'll just put it out there. Phenomenal guy. All right. Great guy. All right. But he has had his struggles in the biggest games in the World Series the last couple of years, getting bombed. Literally horrible pitching outings when this guy who's been a consistency throughout this regular season seems to burn out and flounder. And I want to say it's because the crowd was out of it. It was just him and the other 24, 25 guys, the staff versus the Tampa Bay. He took the crowd out of it and just showed up and pitched. And just literally, hey, boom, boom, boom. I think you have to do that, everybody. Now, don't get me wrong. Enough people are watching the game and looking into it and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to get here, guys, is showing up and putting in that extra time yourself, not being afraid of who's looking at you, just getting out there and doing, attending meetup groups, attending Zoom calls, going to conferences, whether it's in person or virtual, doing something, putting that investment in, picking the phone, calling people that are above where you're at, or growth where you want to be, and talking to those people. And I guarantee most of them will take your phone call if you reach out to them and show respect. The last thing you want to do is show up, discount what they say, and say, well, I'm only going to do this or this. I'm not going to do that. Well, then just go do something else. Save us a lot of time and grief, and just stick to what you're doing. Because if you can't be coachable and you're not willing to take the counsel given by people, not advice, but counsel from those that are there, you're not going to find that success that you dream. And you're just going to go from one thing to another thing to another thing. And if you see that you're one of those individuals that's going from one workshop to another workshop to another workshop, but never doing anything, at some point, you'd be better off just lighting that money on fire, donating it to your local shelter or your favorite charity, because it'll have more impact than what you're doing. At some point, you got to stop learning and you got to start doing. So start doing it, start taking the action, start doing the little things to build into that bigger success. And at some point, you can be standing there hitting the home runs. Maybe not your first at bat, but you'll start hitting more consistently because you've got better at your skill. You've pulled in and you know your strike zone. You know what that high fastball, that low way you avoid. All right. And you know what's in your wheelhouse. And that's the best thing I can tell you is those that are most successful in anything have really honed in their skills. They're focused on their wheelhouse, their primary strike zone. They're not chasing things out of the zone. They're focused on it. And that's why they have the most amount of success is they're coachable and they've learned to hone their skills. They've listened to experts and they've practiced and put into play and struck out before they hit the home run. All right. So guys, I encourage you guys and gals out there, go take some action. Pick up the phone, give me a phone call. If you're struggling, hey, don't struggle alone. There are plenty of people here to help you. I know it. We all can feel overwhelmed sometimes with things going on in this crazy world. Don't be alone. Talk to people. Get out of the house. Slap a mask on. Go have a happy hour somewhere you can. Or go meet a friend. Do it virtually. Whatever you need to do. Get out of the house. Go do something. Connect with those that are doing or where you want to be. And trust me, that little nugget you get from them may be the whole difference between you finding success or continuing to struggle on your path. So wish you all the best of luck, guys and gals. Go take action. And I promise, if you do that, we will see you at the top.